Good morning, everybody. We are live. This is CertaPay's Coffee Break series. We are on number 15 for the year. And I am here with many of the members from the CertaPay HR team. And in traditional style, this is Coffee Break. And I have my Guatemalan from Tempo. And I also have Cindy's, which is a dark roast Americano with 2 shots of espresso in honor of Cindy.
Perfect. That's good.
Do you have a coffee, Tammy?
You know, I'm a little coffee drinker, but by this time in the morning, you guys know I have my Diet Dr. Pepper. No surprise.
Hey, that counts.
Guilty as charged, yes.
Yes, I like it. So today we're going to talk about why your employees are not returning to work and what you can do about it. I'm your host, Rachel Camella. I'm happy to be here, and our moderator today is Tammy Dawson, the VP of our HR team. So welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here with CertaPay today. So this is a great topic because we're hearing from all of you and many of our clients around the country that this is the main issue they're facing is, I can't get my employees to come back to work. I can't get my employees to come back to the office. I can't get them to come back at all. What do we do about it? So first, we're going to talk about some current issues and updates that are impacting that. And then really talk about why are your employees not returning, what's going on there, and then some solutions and what you can do about it. So we hope this gives you some good insight to these questions and problems and some ideas about solutions that you might be able to implement. As always, please put your questions in that chat box. Tammy's going to keep an eye on that, and we may answer some of them as we go along, but if there are still unanswered questions at the end, we will get them for you and cover all of them. We put all of these coffee breaks on our website, so you can get these recorded and all the previous ones we've done on CertaPay's website. Under the News tab, you can find a tab for HR Coffee Break, and all of our topics are in there, some great things. I will probably reference a couple of previous conversations we've had where you can find them in there. So let's dig in. Let's see what we got today. So some of the updates I wanted to cover. First of all, we had 3 federal programs end this week on Monday. You may or may not be aware of it, but some of the unemployment extensions, the $300 extra boost, these programs are all coming to an end. In particular, 3 ended this week. So you might start to see kind of some changes happening in the availability of employees based on that, or the willingness to return. You know, we're seeing some changes in the unemployment dollars, so that may have an impact. We'll be keeping an eye on that. COVID right now, we have a lot of COVID out there. We are not in an easy phase or a lightened phase. Florida actually has quite a significant amount of COVID present out there. So that is impacting the individual's decisions of whether or not to return. When you think about schools, you know, if you've got any kids in school or family members who have children in school, they're in this week, they're out next week, they're, you know, 6 people have COVID and are sent home, and this many are in quarantine. So the school balance right now is a real challenge for our folks who have school-age children. So keep that in mind, and know that also, you know, people have concerns with compromised immune system. So if you are caring for an elderly parent who may be compromised, or if you've got a child who's got a compromised immune system, these are factors that are impacting your employees and your employees' decisions. So that is still a factor. And remote work, you know, this is something that we see for some of these folks, based on these other reasons, it may still be a necessity. And you want to look at flexibility and add those pieces in, because we know that turnover is very, very expensive. And you can see one of our previous coffee breaks about turnover and retention. But when you increase the flexibility, you may then reduce your turnover and keep some employees and maybe even increase productivity. So we're going to talk about those kinds of things too, but you may have some employees who are impacted enough where flexibility and remote work still may be a necessity. And maybe not. You may have some employees where that's not the impact. So we're going to dig in on all of these pieces that are part of the equation. So what's the real story? What is the real reason your employees are not returning? Well, if you ask employers, they will say because of money. They're getting that unemployment money, and so that is actually causing people to not return. Well, yes and no. In some recent surveys and recent polls, 65% of the people who ended up working remote or lost their jobs, 65% of those people said they will not return to work unless it's remote, or they will not return to the office. They want to keep remote working. So that's 65%. 33% said that it must be some form of a hybrid approach. So what does that leave? That's only 2% left. There are 2% of those people who said they are actually willing to come back to the office. So that's quite an issue. And it's not necessarily because of the money. So, when you look at those kinds of numbers, what happened is when people went to remote work, they started to really dig into their own financials in the household. So you may have a 2-income household where they restructured their finances in their own homes, and they have figured out they can make it on one income. And so maybe one of those working people in that household has decided not to return, and it's not necessarily because of unemployment dollars or money that they're getting paid, but it's because of money that's redistributed within their household. So an interesting money component that we are seeing as part of the equation here. And you also have people who maybe not a 2-income household, but maybe 1 income where they have figured out how much they need to survive in their daily financial equation, and they can do with less, or they have redistributed and they've made some changes there. So money is part of the equation, but it's more complex than that. So some of the other pieces that are the real concerns when you ask the other side, when you ask employees what's going on, there are health concerns. So employees don't want to return to an environment that is potentially a risk or perceived by them as a risk. Or if they have risk issues associated with family members with compromised immune systems, or if they feel that the employer is not providing a safe environment. So health concerns are at the top of the list for many employees. Childcare, we've talked about this already, but when you ask employees what is the issue, they will tell you it's childcare right now because of the way the schools are. If the schools are not returning to in-person learning, which we all want to get to. If you ask people about this, please get our kids in school. It's very, very important. We need to figure out a way to get there. But these parents are, their hands are tied. If the kids are sent home, if they can't go to childcare, if they don't have in-person learning, then they have to figure out a solution. So this is a very big issue at the top of the list. And then the other thing, you have to look internally. People leave their positions because they don't like their supervisor. They don't like the management. They don't like you. So I hate to say it that way, but think about it that way. Sorry if that's cold, but internal reflection might be something you need to look at, because that is what we're hearing, that I don't want to go work for that employee or for that employer anymore because of this or that. And so positioning yourself as a desirable employer is going to be part of the solution. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, they don't like the actual job. They don't like what they were doing. I recently read a very long and detailed article and study that spanned the country, and it covered people in certain positions where maybe they were drivers for Uber or Lyft, or they were bartenders, or they were in the service industry, and they really decided that their job tasks were not adding value. And so it was the actual job itself that has people switching. So what those people have done during the last year and a half of COVID is they've taken online classes learning a technical skill, or they have done additional certifications, maybe adding technology, or really reinventing themselves in a way that adds value and makes them feel like they're adding value instead of just in a capacity that they didn't get that satisfaction from. So we have seen a huge reinventing of individuals in the employment market. So something to look at there and maybe, take a lesson from that. How are we doing? Do we have any questions so far?
We do not. No questions yet.
Anything to add, Tammy?
I was thinking, I was making a note when you said that. Yeah, I think it's been a long standing that employees need to know how they add value. Like, what is it that they're doing in their day-to-day that really is meaningful? And so I think as we can from orientation to those conversations with employees to even the annual performance evaluation, reminding them of how their role fits into the bigger picture. So, because I think that is, you struck just a memory when you made that comment about meaningful work. And, there is meaning with every job that we have. And sometimes we have to connect those dots.
That's right. And sometimes you draw this longer line. So not only is the individual contributor important in adding value to the team, and the core team adds value in X capacity, and the team adds to the leadership in XYZ capacity, and the organization is adding value to the society in what capacity. So the whole thing is connected, and drawing that line and explaining it to the employee is going to be a road to adding success and getting people on board. And the other thing that's interesting, we have a fine line to balance. We can't, as business owners and business leaders, we can't always let the employees dictate what happens. We can't have the tail wag the dog, so to speak. So, when we understand that and we say, yes, we know these things are important, and this is how it fits in to the success of this organization. And sometimes organizations have a specific need, and not every employee is a match for every employer. That is definitely a two-way street. So some important pieces to the conversation.
Jose's adding to the comment that we were just making, that you were making, that one of the changes that they're seeing is associates are coming to them looking for a job with their nonprofit so that they can have that purpose that they're looking for. So,
yes.
Excellent point. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so a couple things to consider. What can you do? This is what we really want to do, is figure out how do you solve it. And each one of you is going to have a different problem, but some of these solutions will speak to some of those different problems that you have. And some of the first things to consider are the structure. So, we hear people say, nobody wants to work. There are no employees out there. We've tried everything. We can't do it. So take a look at your current structure and see, if you've got 10 roles, can you restructure in a way that all of the tasks are completed in 8 roles? Is that possible? Or can you add a leadership position that restructure some of the work. So take a close look at your organization structure and see if there's any streamlining that is possible. I know that everybody out there is trying to be the most efficient and clean up processes where you can. And so structure is one of those places where you can do that. It might save you some dollars. It could save you some time. And if you have 3 vacancies, maybe you can do some structural changes and then have 2 positions to fill instead. So one thing to consider there in terms of structure. Take a close look at your job descriptions. Now is a great time to go through your job descriptions and get them in compliance and get each one cleaned up. And also talking about the rates and the wages associated with each of those jobs and tie them together. You know, we talk about pay banding and wage ranges, and this is a great time to do that. So if you look at your structure and see if you're going to make some changes, clean up those job descriptions to cover all the tasks. And sometimes what you might even do is break down all the walls, take all of the tasks in a particular department that need to happen, throw them in a bucket, and then put them in new categories, and then create job descriptions based on those and see what you end up with. Now you can take all of your talent and figure out how can you line that up with those, and then talk about those pay rates and wages and draw those lines and connect them to each job description, how it makes sense. And our next coffee break is going to be talking about minimum wage increases and wage increases overall, and how wage increases can help your organization, and also how to do it. You know, it's a challenge when you need to increase some wages. We have some real clear steps to help you with that. So please join us next coffee break, which is on the 23rd. And we're going to talk about some real things you can do to help there. But these are things you can look at now that will help you attract that talent that you're looking for, and also maybe help you minimize how many positions you need to fill. So now I know there are a lot of positions for which you must have a person on site, and it's unavoidable. And this is going to happen certainly the service industry, the restaurant industry, manufacturing, distribution. There are a lot of industries where we've got to have those bodies in the seats. And so here are some things you can do for those when you know you've got to get people back, you've got to get them in there. So we take a look at some of the concerns and issues, and those are also our solutions. So one thing that is a big concern for these employees, especially when you're putting them in an environment where there are a lot of people, safety is the concern. So take a look at that and see what can you do to make sure your employee feels safe in your environment. Do you need to add social distance? Do you need to add PPE? Do you need to add some processes or compliance pieces where your employees know you're taking care of them and you're looking out for their safety? And certainly under OSHA, we're obligated to provide a safe working environment. And so that's kind of the baseline. But from there, add that extra step. Make sure your employees know this is important to you. You are doing things to protect them. And the feeling that they get from knowing that you're taking care of them is important. And that will help get people to you. And even if it's language you use in your postings, we provide PPE, we take steps to create a safe environment, whatever it is, add that language in there, because then when you are looking, when the employees are looking for you, they will see that and know that it's important. Next, be creative with incentives. So now you're in some competition with other people to get the employees who are looking. So add some incentives in there and be creative. If you can even do maybe a signing bonus or a stay bonus or an extra vacation day or some kind of creative incentive that will get people there that somebody else may not be offering. Think about some different things you can do. Maybe it's a monthly event or some kind of incentive that gets people together and keeps them there. So 60-day bonus, 90-day bonus, and it doesn't even have to be a lot. Maybe it's, you know, a dinner or a gift card or some different kinds of incentives. It doesn't have to be a huge financial impact, but be creative with it. And next, make it easy. This is a big deal. If you can create some kind of applicant situation where they can just click buttons on their phone, you're better off, like Snagajob or Indeed or like Glassdoor, any place that it's really, really easy. If you have an electronic applicant tracking system, these also need to be extremely easy to use. If you have questions where the employee has to answer nonstop all these questions, they're going to jump. And so it almost has to be a one-click apply. If you can add that layer, do that, make it as easy as you can so that information auto-populates and your employees can, the candidates can just do a click and get in. Next, which is also tied to that, you need to move fast. We have our own examples of having some great candidates, and within a matter of 2 days, if we didn't call them back, they've got an offer from somebody else. So have a process where you don't have bottlenecks. Check for those bottlenecks. If people apply, make sure you've got somebody who can look at that, or you have a system that moves them through without a bottleneck situation, and move fast. When you get applicants, when you get information, and you've got a candidate, get them through the process, get them an offer, and get them in. And, you know, when you have, especially the restaurant industry, the service industry, like I said, distribution, manufacturing, you've got to churn them through there as fast as you can, get them in. And then you have a better shot. You're even probably up against multiple offers, so you've got to get them in quick, and then use those fun, creative incentives and, you know, your safety measures, something that sets you apart, and get these people in for you. Promote a positive culture. You know, that positive culture should go throughout the organization. Make sure that's apparent in your searches when you're looking for candidates. Promote a positive culture. Have a positive mission line. Have some positive values. Have some things that attract attention so that when the candidates think about your organization and your culture, they think, okay, this could be a place where I see myself. This could be a place where I'd like to go. And so that's what you want to promote. And it comes from within, guys. I can't tell you this enough. It needs to come from all of you and go through your management and through your current employees. It needs to be everywhere. So that will show in the process, and hopefully that process where you're moving fast. Referrals are the golden ticket. Use your current employees as ambassadors for your organization. Ask them to refer friends, family members, other people they see in the organizations where they go, maybe at the YMCA or in their church group or in other organizations. If they have good people in their circle, ask them to refer people in. This is a very important place where you can get people in to come and join your organization. So these are steps not only for when you have to get them in and have a body in place, but you can do any of these steps for any position that you have. These will be important for any of them. How are we doing, guys?
Good. I don't have any comments on the chat right now.
Everybody's still awake. Getting some good ideas.
Very good ideas. I got a good chuckle with the comment about the easy apply, because the abandonment rate we're seeing right now is crazy. You want to know the honest to goodness truth, because it's, you know, I think it probably only takes, you know, maybe 10-15 minutes to fill out an application, particularly if the resume is auto loading. And even with that, we're just seeing a high abandonment rate. So I don't know.
Yeah. And if any of you has an applicant tracking system and you're not aware of it, if you like tab across, there's an unfinished application tab, and that's where you can see your abandonment rate, and it's probably over 60%. So that means people went to apply to your job, they couldn't finish the application and they bailed. So
Rich, we do have one question. Do you think putting COVID safety in the description might alienate some applicants? So kind of like pros and cons with adding that COVID conversation.
I would say it probably, of course, there's a chance. You know, there's always a chance of these things. However, the percentage of people who are looking for safety as a piece is much larger than the percentage who say, oh, I'm looking for somebody who doesn't care about COVID. So, you know, I think it would be more effective for you to gain people by adding a safety layer.
So we have another very good, interesting comment, because I had not seen this tried yet. So thank you, Jose, for sharing that they've seen an uptick in applicants because they've listed no vaccine or mask mandate required at the work site. So very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Jose.
Yes, Jose, that's such a good point. And again, another great topic. We do have a coffee break on vaccine and mask mandates. So if you want some details on that, please go check that out. It's really a good conversation. And, you know, again, the vaccine and mask conversation is a good one, and it is impacting different people. And so you have to make some business decisions that are tough sometimes. And we as HR professionals recommend being a little bit more vague in a way, is kind of the soft way to say it. When you have a blanket mandate, you do alienate people and make it hard for people. So from an HR point of view, we like to see just some neutral language around those kinds of topics. And, you know, while people may feel that vaccines are very important, having a mandate for them may be a little bit of a challenge for a business owner. So some things to consider, and, you know, that is a very good point. And again, you know, the industry and the activity and how many people are around. And, you know, if you're in the healthcare industry, it might be a different answer, a different kind of conversation. But in a general office environment, or even in an, you know, professions where you might be outside, or, you know, the conversation depends on the business, and it's a business decision that really has to be sifted through. Okay, so how are we doing? Any more questions to address now, or are we looking good?
We're looking good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now some recommendations and some things you can do to really attract that top talent. And if you were paying attention, you would see this is pretty much the same slide that I showed when I talked about the reasons people didn't return. And I'll give you a quick back check just so you can compare. So this is the reason, the real story, and now we're going to go back to our solutions. So when we talk about money, the first thing, as and the reason I did it this way is because, you know, oftentimes we talk about the pros and cons of, you know, somebody, you might say, what is your best quality? What is your worst quality? You know, always the worst interview question, if you guys have that on your list. They're oftentimes the same. So in this case, what is the reason people are not returning, and what do you do to get them back? They're the same. So let's flip-flop that. Compensation. When we talked about this before, you might actually save your company money by increasing some of the wages. And please join us on that coffee break next week, because I'm going to give you a detailed step-by-step process to do this. And when you increase wages, you can attract some really strong candidates and prevent turnover. Turnover is so expensive. I can't say it enough. If you lose one person, you lose 3 times their salary and the corporate memory and all the training that went with that individual. So don't be afraid to increase wages for particular roles if it means attracting that top talent into that position. And so we talked about the job descriptions and the wages and creating some wage ranges for those positions. So it might be something to look at. And it's not just, you don't just randomly say, okay, well, I'm going to add $1 an hour. You know, you really want to look at the big picture. And if you increase some wages in particular ranges, it has to make financial sense. So how do you do that without throwing off your business model? So taking a close look at the compensation structure and doing some restructuring within, trading the dollars. If you save money here, you can place the money in wages. If you prevent your turnover and your retention numbers go up, you save a lot of that money, which goes back to the cycle and the financial big picture. So a place where you can really make an impact and attract some people in that wage number if you have to, and it can make a difference. Show concerns for that health and safety issue. When we know that this is a concern for individuals and you know that people are worried about the safety of their families and their individual health, show concerns there. So what can you do to make a difference? Like we talked about, are there layers of safety that you can add? Can you speak to safety as a primary goal of the organization? You create a safe environment in this way or in that way, or whatever it means to show that concern for safety and wellness. Maybe you add a wellness program. Maybe you add an employee assistance program. Maybe you do things that just show you are important to us, your safety is important to us, and having that out there as a part of your culture makes a difference. And this will help you when you need to attract that top talent and keep that top talent. Childcare. Again, knowing that the childcare is one of the primary issues that employees are having, offer those remote options, offer a hybrid if you have to, maybe keeping flexible schedules, having 4-day work weeks, having different shift options, and being flexible in the schedule and the remote options really does make a difference, and it will help you attract some top talent to the different positions. Also, you know, you may have some ways to connect with childcare facilities, or we have even talked to some business owners who have partnered with childcare operations and had added on-site childcare. So there may be some things you can do to really be creative there when you're creating that hybrid, adding some childcare options or at least addressing it and seeing what you can do to alleviate that stress piece. Knowing that, you know, it's in the top 5 there for stress for your employees that you're trying to attract. To take a close, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to add here is, you know, many of us don't have roles that we can have people work from home, you know, so we have to have people come into the office or into the shop or, you know, whatever the work site is. So kind of taking a, you know, chapter from probably the 90s, but, you know, the job share, you know, so it may be time that we bring back, you know, some job share options where you have 2 part-timers work together to create that full-time role. Or, you know, like an early shift, a late shift, because that could drive to resolving some of those childcare issues. So sometimes it's kind of what was old is new again, and you're looking at some creativity, because not every role can have the hybrid, and we get it. We know that not every role can have the hybrid or their work from home for multitudes of reasons. But I think that's where it comes back to really sitting down and, you know, looking at what possibly can be done, because it is a huge struggle with the childcare options and just people wanting maybe a little more flexibility now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so take a close look at your leadership. You know, people leave because they didn't like their manager. So if you have an issue here, take a look at that, you know, pay attention to it, look at the leadership, look at the culture of the organization. Culture is a big driver. And so can you take steps here? Maybe it's adding some training, maybe it's adding some leadership workshops or some different ways to really develop and grow that leadership so that you have some real strong culture and leaders, and put some training and energy into those managers, and also know what your turnover numbers are, and try to figure out, why do you have that turnover? Why are people leaving? Why do people stay? If you have departments that are really functioning well and you don't have turnover in those departments, go find out why those people are staying. That will give you a lot of really good information. And so understanding why you might not be able to keep people in certain positions will help you solve that as an issue, and help you get some great talent into those roles. And finally, the positions must be rewarding. We touched on this before, and we're seeing this as definitely a trend, because individuals want to feel like they are doing something that's rewarding and that adds value. So we know that every role in an organization is very important and critical to the success. You know, the hostess is extremely important in the restaurant environment. The person who answers the phone is critical. This is your frontline person. The person who works on the janitor crew is significant and helps keep the ball rolling. Every single position you have is important to the success of your organization. So make sure, whatever it is, the employees and the individual contributors, as well as the leaders and managers, make sure every single one understands how they fit into the mix, and what the greater goals are, and what does your organization do that adds value. And as long as everybody understands from one side to the other, how do they fit in? How does that person fit into the department? How does the department fit into the organization, and how does the organization fit into the society? And what are you doing that adds value and makes a difference? These are important questions to the employees who are looking for a role. And when I talked about those employees who are reinventing themselves and looking to get back into a new role, this is the question they're asking. What can I do in this new role where I've reinvented myself to add value to society? And so that's going to be an important piece of this. And these are the top 5 issues that the candidates you're searching for are asking. So if you can go through some of these and update where you are and make those changes and push it up a notch, you're going to start to see some changes.
So we do have a question. So for conversation purposes, one of the biggest obstacles with childcare for us is when a daycare or school closes temporarily due to COVID. No one is there to take care of the children. When the children are home, remote work really isn't available when they've got toddlers and small children at home. So just kind of throwing it out for conversation and what suggestions that we may have.
Yeah, this is absolutely a common question that we are getting on a daily basis. And it's, because of that, because they're in school and then all of a sudden, the kids are sent home at 11 in the morning. And your employees are already at work. They have to go pick up the kids, so they've got to drop everything and leave. So this is a real challenge. Tammy mentioned that job sharing concept, the schedule flexibility. These are the pieces that may be important. Also, get ahead of it. Have the conversation with your current employees and say, we know this is happening right now. We know that this is going to be a possible situation for you. We understand, and here's what we're doing to create some solutions. So maybe you have some backup plans in place in terms of individuals. You have some cross-training across departments, and put some measures in place. We still are in that FFCRA optional paid leave window through the end of the month right now. And so this would fall under that 2/3 pay available. So if you've decided not to offer that, that's fine too. You may have people who have used all of the available time, but that is a financial piece there where if you pay that 2/3 pay, you do get those credits back in taxes due on the 941. So a little bit of a financial piece there, maybe some cross training, but the best thing would be get ahead of that, knowing that it's possible. And if you have a plan in place for backing up positions that may have to jump ship quickly, maybe each position has a backup person. So if you can create some teams, in-house teams where you've got person A backs up person B and vice versa, or maybe you pair them with people who may not end up in a childcare situation so that you always have backup for positions to help in this case, knowing that, you know, it's kind of out of their control. You know, if that happens, not everybody has, you know, a mother-in-law or a family member or somebody who can go help them with the kids. So having a plan ahead of time will be the best solution for that. And then just, I mean, really, we've got to ride it out. What do you have to add, Tammy?
Yeah, so it's just part of what you said, making preparations ahead of time. So there is a benefit offering that we actually did have a couple clients jump in and participate in. Nothing that we're offering, but you know, just some benefit offerings that we've made some recommendations to. And it's care.com, urbansitter.com, or a couple ones that are coming off the top of my head right now. It's a small industry, but it is kind of like an EAP kind of program, if you're familiar with that. But you buy the employee membership so that they can find sitters, sometimes at a last minute, that are already vetted, they're already background screened. They come with, like 5-star ratings. Now the employee still pays for it. What you're purchasing as a client or as an employer, you would just be purchasing the membership. So that is not a budget buster at all. But what I like with those plans, because we did do that, we did partner with some clients early on during COVID to find some of those solutions, because it gets people thinking ahead of time and it gives them those solutions at their fingertips. I also think it sets the expectation that they still need to come to work. Kind of a tough pill to swallow some days, because it sets the expectation, I'm going to buy this membership for you. And I so hope you can't hear my dog barking in the background. I don't know what's happening, but sorry about that. But it does set, gives that tool to those associates that they do have somebody they can call. They're already vetted. The background screening is done. All you purchase is the membership, which is low dollar. And then from there, they actually pay the cost for childcare. So just an offering, but it goes right back to what Rachel said. It's just thinking ahead of time and making some of those plans.
Yeah, that's a great option too. I love that. We've seen that in action and it works well. But plan ahead. That's your best solution on that, is be prepared for it. And really, with any of these pieces, it's kind of the same thing. If you look ahead, you look at what information you currently have and what's going on, and you're looking to solve things that may be happening. So you're really planning ahead on all of this, and that makes a big difference for you. So some final thoughts. Again, understand why people are not returning to work, or you're having trouble filling these positions and finding. If you can really understand what's happening, those 5 reasons, then you can solve them, because those are the same things you need to do to solve the issues. And flexibility is really important. Be flexible. Don't be afraid to make changes to the way you always did things. We are in a new place now. We're not going back to the way it was before. So be flexible, be creative, and don't be afraid to change right now. It will benefit you. It will help you attract those new candidates that you're looking for. any final questions or thoughts or additions?
Just feel free to add some chat, any questions you have or comments. And you can tell that we like these sessions because they're such great idea generators. So if you've had anything that's worked and you want to share, we would love to hear it. My dog has stopped barking. I'm very happy about that.
And we've got it recorded.
Exactly. Yes, so somebody just also mentioned care.com. The other one I found was urbansitter.com, and they are, although the name of it makes it sound like they're just in the big cities, they're not. So they're across the country. It's actually a California firm, but they do have sitters, including pet sitters, had to throw that in, and all across the country. So Urban Sitter and care.com are two that are jumping off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a few more in the industry, but I know from talking to some of those resources, their businesses just boomed, you know, particularly the summer of 2020 when schools were closed and daycares.
Also, Joanna just added kindercare.com.
I think that is one, you're right. Yes.
That's a good one too. And Deborah, I saw your question. I will make sure you get added to our invite list for future coffee breaks. We do these every other Thursday at 11:30, a variety of topics. Like I said, next coffee break, which is in 2 weeks, is going to be on increasing wages and steps you can take to do that without having a financial impact. I will, Reggie. Don't worry, I got you. So thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate your time. And thank you for spending it with us this morning. Certipay values all of you. And we look forward to seeing you on our future coffee breaks. If you need any other help, HR, payroll related, we can solve a lot of problems for your employees and anything human capital management related. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here for you. Thank you all.